Well, there's Tux and Gray, and there's Stripe, and Marty's under the bench. Morris is up the hill, and Slate is eating Panther's food on the front porch. See if I can get out the door without an international incident.
Sunday morning, that means we get to walk. It's not as refreshing out here, but it's not horrible.
Right, I agree.
I didn't get any mosquito bites going up the hill to feed the kitties, so that's a good thing. Well, we figured out where the possum is or why the guys are interested over there. There's a hole underneath that holly tree, and
it's all...
Oh, there's another one, so there's babies and everything in there.
Yeah, there's a washed out.
Yep. Okay, well, we'll leave them be. We weren't trying to disturb them. Sometimes, you know, they're night creatures, but in the spring when they have babies, babies don't sleep when you expect them to. It's a misconception that just because you see a raccoon or a possum during the day that they automatically have rabies. That's not true. In the spring, babies just don't sleep all nocturnal hours. And besides, possums are highly unlikely to have rabies. Body temperature is in the 70s. It's too low. While we enjoy coffee, Dawn reads the newspaper, and soon we'll be watching some videos. I am continuing to work on the floor. This is the bathroom on the second floor. A lot of Sunday mornings, or Saturdays too, when Don and I are sitting around and he's reading the newspaper, we get to talking about EV related stuff. Yeah. And I'm going to turn it over to Don in just a second. He was reading George Will's opinion this morning about the EV tax credit and some other stuff that President Biden's proposing. But I just wanted to say, you know, when our friend came yesterday, we didn't think to offer to let him plug in his Tesla, which I guess we wish we had, because we usually do. But really, it sort of speaks to when you drive around town, you don't need to plug in and charge wherever you go. It's not necessary because you're doing all your charging at home. Right. You're not on a trip. You know, I have 200 miles easy of errand running anywhere I want to go during the day, and I don't need to worry about plugging in during the day. I don't even think about it unless I were to have to make like a third trip into downtown Raleigh, and then I might glance over to go, yep, good. Right. So I think that's why we didn't think about it, because we knew he was local. But anyway, my point is,
he had home charging.
And he had home charging. He doesn't live in an apartment complex, and you know, one of those I supercharge once a week or twice a week people to make apartment living without charging at the apartment complex work. So that kind of ties into maybe a little bit of some of the stuff Don was going to say about what he was reading this morning.
Yeah, well, first of all, I have to say, me and George tend to be always on the same page. I'm not 100% agreement with him all the time, but most of the time I do agree with him. So obviously that makes me somewhat conservative, because he's a conservative commentator. In this particular case, I'm particularly in agreement with him. He makes some statements here that could offend some people, but they are accurate. The tax credit, the $7,500 tax credit, the vast majority went to people in higher incomes. Maybe it went to filthy rich people too, but Marianne and I, we're not rich, but we don't have to worry about. We have plenty of slack.
We have some discretionary income.
That's right. In fact, I often tell people when they know, if people, especially a couple of years ago when Teslas, before the Model 3 was out, and the costs were down. The only thing that most people knew about Teslas, they were really, really, really expensive. And I would tell people, and it is true, that some people use their disposable income to buy a boat or something along those lines, belong to a country club. They've got disposable. We used our disposable income to buy a Tesla. We could have bought another car and used our disposable income to buy a boat, but I would rather drive
or an RV or
an RV or camper or something. So that's what we chose to do. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. What I was trying to get at is that he is accurate. Less than 1% of that tax credit went to people making $50,000 or less. But I would also tell you, if you only make $50,000, that's $7,500. The chances of you paying almost any, especially if you're married with a couple kids, you're almost no way are you paying any federal income taxes anyway. So you never even got, you would certainly got back all the taxes that you paid, which is probably very minimal. So I question that. He should have pointed that out, that I did, based on what Mary and I, our tax bracket, because we were married, and at that time I did this, there were two kids at home, and using that tax table, and I think it was 2017 or 18 after we bought Ruby, the $7,500 tax credit was still available and quite popular with for Tesla, but I think you had to make like at least $90,000 or something like that to even come close to getting this. So I just I wonder. Anyway, my point is that the whole thing, from the way it was designed, it was going to go to people with higher incomes, because you have to make quite a bit of money before you pay $7,500 in federal taxes. So that's one thing. So the other thing I point out here is, look, I don't think we need any subsidies for purchasing electric vehicles. In fact, I'm a Tesla stockholder, so I'm biased to Texas. I'm a Tesla fanboy. I know all that. Tesla and GM both have already dealt with the lack of subsidies for their cars. So right now, it's actually the people who actually did the most the whole point of the tax credit was to spur EV adoption. The people who did the most for it are actually being penalized for it. So it's actually a disincentive for the people who put the risk out there and pioneered and blazed the trail, and everybody else coming behind, Ford, Audi, Porsche, they're getting the gravy. So I think it's unfair. I would prefer Biden to kill all EV tax subsidies completely as a Tesla stockholder. But as a taxpayer, because I don't know how you're going to structure this to have it avoid going to high-income individuals, I just want to get rid of it, period. As a taxpayer, I just want to get rid of it, period. So the other thing that he talked about is that Biden's proposal about the $7,500 one, but he also wants to spend $300 million or something like that on building DC 500,000 charging stations. I don't know if they're all DC fast charge or what. Well, George makes a good point. He said between 1920 and 1930, we went from 2 million cars to 20 million cars, and somehow the government never built a single filling station that entire time. I agree. We do not need the government to build charging stations. Again, Tesla took money out of their own pocket. As far as I know, and it's possible that some local municipality or some backdoor subsidy, Tesla got a small subsidy from somewhere. I cannot be 100% certain. But I would say that the vast majority of the Tesla superchargers were put in 100% using Tesla's own money. So I don't believe that we need the government subsidizing commercial DC public fast chargers. Now, what do we need? We do need the government to tell building codes, you need to put conduit in. You don't have to run the wire. You need to make it really easy for dwellings to be support electric vehicle charging easily without digging up the yard, cutting holes through walls and all this stuff. We need that. That's almost free when you're building. They're building all these new condos and all these single, and not one of them, not a single one of them has a 50 amp circuit ran to the garage. None of them. Much less the conduit or anything else. So none of these new 140 condos they're building up here less than a mile from our house will support. The homeowners will have to pay, and it's probably not even, never even crossed their mind. It's going to be expensive, so that's going to do it. So I think the government for almost free could affect this problem in a more positive way. Just change the building codes. And if you really want to spur the adoption, instead of building 500,000 DC fast chargers, you need to maybe go back somehow and pay or subsidize property owners. Maybe they ought to get a special tax credit or something to install DC fast chargers, or install chargers or some type of charging infrastructure in the apartments complex, because I still say, I still say, even to this day, even with the Tesla, if you do not have a place to charge at home, at where you spend the majority of your time, home, and I don't even agree with the work so much. I mean, that's a close second. But if you can't plug in at home, I almost recommend don't get an electric vehicle. I mean, just, maybe next time. Because the biggest advantage you get, which is what Marianne started to say, is that we had a friend visit us who had a Tesla. We never even thought about offering him charging. We should have. I felt bad that we didn't. I didn't even think about it, because as a Tesla a person, you know that you're going to charge when you get home. You don't need to find a charger during the day, because you charged at home every morning. She leaves home every morning. He leaves home. He has plenty of range. He's going to go his whole day and never have to think about stopping and charging. Yes, when you take trips at Thanksgiving, when you go see grandma, yeah, but that's not what people do. So please change the building codes, give incentives. Maybe you give homeowners $2,000 tax credit for, and they did do some stuff to put in the charger. And while you're at it, we talked about it with the Ford F-150. You got to have a transfer switch. Maybe, like out in California, they've started mandating that the houses have to be built solar ready or something. You need to put that transfer switch. You need to go on and say, this house needs to be able to run not only solar ready, it needs to be able to run off grid. That's a building requirement. This house needs to have the infrastructure in place that if the homeowner wants to take money out of their own pocket, they can easily, without tearing up the entire world, go off grid. So that's what I think they ought to do, and that would cost the taxpayers nothing. It might cost the new homeowner buyer a little bit, but I would just say there was another article in the paper that housing prices had jumped $40,000 in the triangle. And I got news for you: the cost of a solar ready house isn't why they jumped $40,000 in a single year. So I don't know why we're worrying about a couple $1,000. Maybe the builder might not make the couple $1,000 less, but I don't think he's gonna have any problem selling his house because he's gonna charge a couple $1,000 more to make it where you can go off grid. Because if you designed it into the house, you put everything in place, it's next to nothing during the construction phase. But to retrofit it, it's the $10,000, it's the $15,000 problem. It's such a disincentive. So if you're trying to incentivize going green, climate change and all that other stuff, going solar, you need to get the maximum bang for the buck, and that's put the incentive in the building codes.
Yeah, I think I said it one time before. First off, I'm the one that monitors Facebook for me and Don. I kind of really do it as a family service, and especially the Tesla groups. He started out as the big Tesla Facebook person, and then it kind of moved to me. But all the time people ask, what do I do about home charging? How much is it going to cost me? How do I know if this estimate that I got is a valid estimate? How do I handle, I'm going to add this extra cost that isn't financed along with my car that I have to fork out in order to get the EV, which I think is a big impediment, because I can't, have to put it on a credit card or come up with that $500 to $1,500, sort of worst case scenario to pay for it. And so it's a big unknown. And I do think that, I'm just always like, just find 2 or 3 electricians, have them come and give you an estimate. Well, that means you got to not be working, and you got to be home, and you got to allow somebody into your house. And, I really think that slows people down. I see it all the time in the Facebook groups. All of us always answer, well, you probably need to have a breaker added to the box. Hopefully your box has space. You probably need some conduit run from the box to where you want the charger thing to go. Hopefully your box isn't too far from where you want to charge, because the farther away it is, the more conduits run, the more wire, the higher the cost. I mean, we can sort of tell over and over. We keep answering this question, even though there's all of this information out there for folks that search on it probably pretty good. So I'm going to agree with Dawn that I think, more structures, more apartments, more homes, more condos that have a charging structure ready to go, advertised as ready to go, advertised as ready, that would go a long way to toning down some of these concerns that folks have about how am I going to handle the charging at home. And, we see a lot of this focus on, well, you go to Whole Foods, you can plug in while you shop. Well, they're really slow charging. Even if Whole Foods had a charger there, I don't even care if I drove a Chevy Bolt. I wouldn't be plugging in at the charge. I mean, am I looking for a fancy parking spot? Well, that parking spot's not way out. It's not a double wide spot. I mean, I'm not going to park in that spot anyway. But it's like I'm only going to pick up what? Am I going to pick up 8 miles an hour or something like that? I mean, why would I bother to even plug in over there? So putting more of these chargers in just so I can have a nice parking spot, or I can show off that I'm driving an EV, or I can just get some free electricity when I can afford electricity at my own home. I mean, why do those make no sense to me either. They really don't. Now, I do want to say one thing I thought of when Dawn was saying, you really should have charging at home probably if you're going to have an EV, or it won't work well. Well, are exceptions, like the folks that live in Cary within a 5 to 10 mile radius of the Target where the supercharger is, and they're normal working people and they want to shop on the weekend. They go over there and they plug into that supercharger. They get charged up to 80% or 90%, and they do their shopping, and they eat out, and they're totally happy to do that. And because they only have a 20 to 30 mile a day commute, they really only have to do that once a week. And maybe they do it on the weekends. It's more busy then, so hopefully they do it, on a weeknight or something. They can make that work because they happen to have the luxury of living close to the supercharger. And I'm sure there's some Electrify America people that at Walmart, they sort of do this. They happen to live near the EA charger. They come to Walmart, they plug in, they do their shopping. They do that once or twice a week, and that does work out okay for them. So it can. But you really sort of need to be 5 to 10 miles from one of these faster chargers, or then I think it does start to get to be a hassle unless you've got a place to log in at work. But yeah, so I don't know where I was going to conclude this, but I did agree with Dawn with the helping incentivize, whether it's just through zoning and building ordinances, or whether it's also through some incentivization to help put the charging infrastructure into apartment complexes and homes. Either one of those would go a long way. And now that I've talked for a while, of course, you know, when Don talks, I come up with things I want to say. And then when I talk, he comes up with things he wants to add. So I'm going to turn it back over to him now.
Totally agree with what Marianne said. I wanted to point out, I have talked to the guys, the head of Electrify America, out at Fully Charged Live a year ago, January of 20. I've forgotten the gentleman, Heimlich or something, but he's the head of Electrify America. I'm not talking the little guy, I'm talking the CEO of Guy. And I asked him about the Electrify America had a multi-pronged approach. One of course, the ones everybody's familiar with is the DC fast charging network. But one of the other parts of that VW settlement was multi-family dwelling charging. In other words, this problem of apartments and stuff is a known problem. And Electrify America was tasked with coming up with solutions, or a solution. And one of the things they tried was what I just said. They basically made it all but free, and I don't want to say it was free because it wasn't free, but they incentivized property owners. Electrify America would literally come out and pretty much do everything, and it would cost the property owner very little money. And even in California, they didn't have a very good uptake. That program, he said, failed. That you would think it would have worked, that apartment building people, owners would have jumped at the chance, but they just didn't. Some did, but most didn't. Electrify America now, he told me their position is, and I haven't checked him since then, the solution for apartment complexes is what Marianne just said. They recommend the apartment complex install a DC fast charger so that the people in the apartment complex can run over there when they're low and charge their car up in 20-30 minutes to fully charge, and then get out of the parking place. So that's what same thing is. So in case, she said you go to Target and shop, or go to Walmart and shop. He said for the apartment building people, you just simply go put it over there, go watch your soap opera, and go back. Well, I added the part about the soap opera. He didn't say go watch the soap opera. But anyway, I think that's also another way. So if the government wanted to somehow incentivize DC fast chargers at apartment complexes, you know, everybody thinks of one. I think the concept is if you put in, you know, there's usually one laundromat at apartment complexes, or two laundromats.
But there's 20 machines or 10 machines
That's
or
right.
in the laundromat.
So if you're going to install a DC fast charger, maybe you put in 4, maybe you put in 6, okay? And the people just simply walk there. And of course, if you have the same policy, if the guy sits there and parks and blocks it, and he's, you know, plugged in, you charge him money. Or something like that. I mean, there are ways to handle that, and I think the whole blocking charging spaces, EV charging spaces, is going to be one of the things that we're going to need to solve. And so if the government wanted to come up with some special technology that, you know, laser beams, the Star Wars laser beams the person who blocks a EV charging station for unlegitimate charging purposes, I'm all for it.
Yeah, well, we know when Bob Barker used to be downtown where the new City Hall is, you know, all the employees, and then over where they are still over on 55, where they have the charging, because they've always supported charging in town. You know, those employees, they all know each other. Well, that will happen at the apartment complex, too. All the EV drivers will know each other. And you will be on the you-know-what list if you...
text message.
Yeah,
text
like,
if you need to
they just got a Facebook group or WhatsApp or, you know, Snapchat or whatever. Some way they decide amongst themselves to manage, you know, hey, your car's done, I need to charge now. Can you come move it in a nice way? I mean, I'm just saying, usually EV drivers will negotiate with other EV drivers so
Generally
everybody
speaking.
gets to charge. I know there's exceptions out there of
Yeah.
people that don't do the right thing. We even see it at the Tesla supercharger sometime. But the majority, let's not focus on the couple of people that don't do what they should do. Let's focus on the majority people that are totally capable of, oh, okay, no problem, I'll come move my car now, kind of a thing.
Right.
So I think all I'm trying to say is at these apartment complexes, it'll work because the EV owners will know each other and they'll just, you know, we're still small enough now. It would still be the percentage of people that it would be, it still can be managed by people just talking to each other and making it work. So,
Well, it's the same thing like everything else is that, so you put in a 2-headed DC fast charger, one at the condo. You put in one cabinet and one DC fast charger, but you run conduit for 5 more. Okay, and when you dig up the parking lot and you put the transformer in or whatever,
right.
you put it in so that you can have 6. You put in one today because the actual charger and the cabinet does cost money, but when you put that infrastructure in and you got the guy out there trenching and you tearing up the parking lot and doing all those kinds of things, you go on and run the conduit, maybe even pour the concrete, and you do like I've seen Tesla, some places they come up, the conduit comes up and it's capped. You know, someday it's going to be there, and it's just not there today. So the reason why we didn't hear anything from Elon on May 19th was because he was too busy sending smoking hot emails to all the people on the Cybertruck team to get those pencils and get busy. I'm telling you, if the Cybertruck front was powered, we would have already saw it. He would have showed it off that first night. He was very proud of it lowers down in the back. I guarantee you, if it would have automatically raised the front, he'd have showed it. I have to point out things to people. The Model 3 that was shown and then the revealed on March 31st, 2016, the Model Y was never really revealed. Basically, they didn't change as far as feature function very much from the revealed model to what shipped. The only thing really the Model Y added that the Model 3 should have had was the power trunk, and they finally did that on the Model
lift
3.
gate at the back, yeah.
So I'm telling you, Cybertruck people should be doing backflips, because I guarantee you, Hans has not slept since Elon got a hold of him on the 19th until Elon signs off on the design change of the power front that lifts the front end of the Cybertruck, basically from the bumper up. I guarantee you it'll be there. And if it isn't, if it's like the way the Model X or the Model Y or the Model 3 with just that little pop top comes up and I have to bend over to put all that crap in there, Tesla's going to miss the mark. Everybody's going to say, well, I like the Ford.
I like the mega power front.
Yeah, so
We've got Casey's live screen up on the TV now. Dawn asked a question a little while ago. I am going to stop my Lego build for the day. As you can see, I have added a lot more stuff. We're gonna take Jules out for a drive again, and oh boy, you can feel the heat out here now. I sat on my little step here and it was hot in the sun. So we're pulled in at the environmental park so I can spin the Pokestop. No grand plans, but we have to return our red box. We watched a Liam Neeson film, Honest Thief. It was good. I enjoyed it.
yeah.
I like Liam Neeson a little better than that Jonathan Strahan. Yes, I like the Liam Neeson films a little better. So much so.
Jason Strahan.
Right. Sorry, I messed that up.
That's
so
all right.
much so that there's another Liam Neeson at the box, and I think when I drop this one off, I'm probably going to pick that one up because
Makes sense.
it is cheaper, although not as convenient, obviously, as getting it off of YouTube TV or Google Play or something like that. So
Yeah, if you know you're going to go out the next day, then it's not
A big deal.
A big deal. But if you're not going to go out, then it's, it is a little bit more inconvenient.
Yeah, and our Walmart has a box at both doors, and
Yeah.
I think the Harris Teeter is back to having 2 boxes,
Yeah.
so it's fairly easy to find the red box you want around town. And anyway, and I got a return at Kohl's, and Dawn's just driving around with me a bit. I feel a little bit better now, but I had a period this morning where I really didn't feel good again, and
Poor thing.
yeah, I fired off a note to my neurologist this time. I mean, it's all great, and it is fantastic that my MRI is clear and I haven't had a stroke and I don't have any tumors, and
Right, that's
there's no
all
signs
good.
of multiple sclerosis. That's all really great, but it still doesn't
That's
explain
why it's going on.
Yeah, last night I had this sudden pain in both ears, and then tingling and bug crawling across the bridge of my nose and both cheeks, and it was only really bad for about 10 minutes, but I had the sensations for hours.
Yeah.
It didn't really go away, and then this morning it was sort of up here and coming down into my eyes, but very bilateral. And you know, since the emergency room twice this year has told me I'm not dying, we're not headed to the emergency room. But still, I need some answers, because I'm just not feeling very good. I don't think I felt good all day for like the entire day, with no concerns in, well, I don't remember, probably before the start of the year. So yeah, anyway, I'll quit complaining. Obviously, I'm pretty bright right now. I feel, like I said, it eased up some, so there's that. And the pain in my chest is still there, but the naproxen at 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. is about when I've been taking it, is keeping that at bay for the most part.
Right.
So I can't move my Lego bins around quite as much as I want to, but I'm doing okay. On the rebuilt, renovated Fuquay High School really is coming along. I got my return done at Kohl's too. I had a pretty good sized box I had to grab out of the trunk. Well, it was more that it was heavy. It was a bedding set. Anyway, return done. Don's over here putting the finishing touches on Ruby, doing the black trim and the tires. You know, he likes to do that the next day when everything is nice and dry. And also, Ruby's metal was cool because she was in the garage, and this is in the shade right now. The other part near the steps is not. So
Yeah, and you know, the Extreme Tire Shine works okay. I still like the stuff that foams. This kind of foams, but I like the stuff that foams up like foaming bubbles.
well, we tried to buy the same stuff this last time, and the label had changed on Amazon, and I'm not sure that it's exactly the same stuff.
But this is working good. It's just I'm still.
So it's Armor All
Yeah,
Extreme Tire Shine, and Don is putting it on the foam pad and then wiping it on stuff.
I sprayed it on the tire, then I wipe it off the foam pad. With the foam pad, that helps it, but it gets it smooth and it helps it dry a little quicker. And I have to do the foam pad to do the
all the way on the trim.
Now this is just the one I use on the dirty parts of the black trim, not the start part on the outside of the wheel wells. I have a cleaner foam pad. This is the one I use on the tires, and so it gets dirty. So I use it.
Sure. Because even after you've washed it, it still could have a little bit of dirt.
I try to wash. They really don't wash well. I just throw them away. This here gets really dirty too. So I used a dirty one on that. But the clean one is what I use around the wheel wells and along the bottom and stuff like that. Because I don't want to put more dirt. I mean, this thing is kind of like dirty.
Yeah. Well, if your trim on your X looks grayed out. The reason Ruby's doesn't is because Don does this.
Yeah, it only takes, honestly, to do the tires and all the trim, and I even got up under and did the diffuser, up underneath the bottom and did the diffuser. I laid over on my side, 15 minutes.
Sure.
You know.
Well, you can definitely tell the difference after Don applies the rest of the product to the car. And I am driving to an ENT appointment tomorrow morning, assuming it's not raining, because I'm not getting her dirty before I've even driven her. Then I would just I don't know what I would do. Probably take the van or Jules, because Jules is not as clean. I don't know.
Because my girl loves me, I use these plastic disposable gloves and not get that stuff all over my hands anymore. So I try to keep the toxins down to a minimum because my girl wants me around a long time.
And because I'm so sensitive to all of that stuff, much more so than Dawn.
Yeah.